I'm sorry. This is really more triggering for me than I thought.
I am so sorry, honey. I know. Yeah, and this is okay, Shanti. This is the thing. This is the journey, right? And this is why I did the podcast, because I believe the tears that are coming out is that you're being triggered by the life that you led, that you didn't even give yourself permission to call a caregiving life. And now you're seeing that what you went through with your mom and what your sister and your brother went through with your mom, it's all a part of this. And there's guilt tied to it. There's joy tied to it. There's pain tied to it.
What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Shanti Das, the host of the Mibo Show podcast. M-I for mind and what? B-O for body, because it is all about living that Mibo lifestyle. You got to take care of your mind and you got to take care of your body. They are both equally important. And season 2 is in full effect. So guess what? If you haven't checked us out, please do so. We are available on all podcast platforms. We have great people that we talked to in season 1 and season 2. So if you don't have anything to do this weekend, just binge season 1 and check out season 2. And so I'm super excited about what we're going to be talking about today. It's actually very personal for me, and I'll share a little bit of my journey before we get into the conversation. But first, let me go ahead and just introduce my guest, because I'm just like shaking in my I don't have my boots, but shaking in my flip-flops to introduce this incredible young woman. So we are very fortunate and blessed today to have Yvette Nicole Brown. Born August 12th. She just had a recent birthday. We both found out that we had a class 89. Woo, woo. She is an American actress. She starred in the NBC sitcom Community, in the reboot of The Odd Couple, and on the ABC sitcom The Mayor. Yvette also had a recurring role in Drake and Josh, and has had guest roles in TV shows such as That 70s Show, The Office, Boston Legal, Chuck, The Soul Man, Mom, and Big Shot. And in 2021, this is so exciting, she received a Primetime Emmy nomination for her role in a Black Lady sketch show. I could go on and on and on. Welcome to the show, Yvette.
Thank you for having me. That's a nice, lovely intro. Thank you.
And I just want to shout out our mutual friend, who's one of my besties, Tisha Campbell, for connecting us. I am truly, truly grateful. And I know that you all work together.
At your age.
Yeah,
at your age.
That's right. So thank you.
I had a good time with her.
This is really personal for me, Yvette. And I'm just so grateful that you agreed to do this particular episode. And I honor you for all that you've been doing. We're going to be talking today about Alzheimer's and particularly caregiving. And so I'm going to start to read a couple of stats just to give our listeners context, but then I'm going to share a little bit of my personal journey. So as it relates to Alzheimer's in the Black community, among Black Americans ages 70 and older, 21.3% are living with Alzheimer's, a type of dementia that affects the memory. Black Americans are twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's disease as non-Hispanic white Americans. And also Black Americans are less likely to be correctly diagnosed, and their families often struggle to get proper treatment. And so I want to give also some stats and context around adult caregiving. Just recently in 2023, adult caregiving has increased to 26 hours per week. Almost half spend 10 to 29 hours of their week devoted to caregiving, and 27% spend 30 hours or more providing caregiving. The number of people in the adult population providing care and working outside the household has increased from 1 to 7 in 2020 to now 1 in 5. That means 1 in 5 people that you know is doing some sort of role as a caregiver. And so as it relates to caregiving, family caregivers of people with Alzheimer's and related dementias are at greater risk for anxiety, depression, and poor quality of life than other people who aren't caregiving. So it's really important to take time as much as you can to try to give back to yourself, right? And pour back into that empty cup as a caregiver. And so, Yvette, I just want to share with you a little bit about my journey. My dad took his own life when I was a baby. Wow. I was just 7 months old, and my sister was 9.5 years my senior, and I had a brother that's 5.5, 6 years older. So fast forward, my mom started developing Alzheimer's, or dementia rather, while I was living in New York City, probably around 2007, 2008. She was living by herself at the house, and she also had been diagnosed with diabetes. And we really kind of feel like that the diabetes might have kind of sped things up for her. So fast forward, she lived with my sister for a while, for about, she lived with my brother first in Atlanta for about a year. They had young children and it just got to be a little much for them. And she was blaming the family for different things and being really forgetful. And we didn't know anything really about this. And so she said, I want to go live with my daughter. So she moved up to North Carolina to live with my sister and lived with my sister almost 2 years. And then it just got to be too much for my sister. She had young kids also, but she had gotten to the point where she could not support my mother anymore. So I was going through a lot of changes. I was at the height of my career, executive vice president at Universal Motown. But I felt like it was all falling on my sister. So that was one of the reasons why I walked away from my music career and came back home, in addition to some other mental and physical challenges. So long story short, my mom lived with Alzheimer's for almost 13 years. But she ended up going into a memory care facility probably, 9 or 10 years of that time span. But I do think it was a blessing that my sister was able to find her a great facility that actually cared about her. And we'll get more into that. But I just wanted you to know that although, I wasn't a caregiver in the home,
you were a caregiver
in this journey.
And you also were a caregiver. I think a lot of people think that the only way you can call yourself that is if the person's in the home. If you were in New York doing doctor's visits and calling to make sure she took her medication, you were a caregiver. So don't take that from yourself. And I think if we look at it from that perspective, it's more than 1 in 5. It's probably 1 in 3.
Thank you for that, because I would say then that my sister was the primary caregiver and I was secondary. But we'll get more into that. But I just needed you to know that. And so if I get a little emotional while we're talking, girl, just,
same.
Just know that, this journey, if you haven't been through it, it's not an easy journey. So I'm going to get into my first question for you. And I just, honor you today and thank you for being transparent with us. Yvette, you recently started a podcast to share your story about caregiving for your father. And your father was diagnosed and you moved him from Ohio to California. I believe this was maybe 12, 13 years ago.
It's 11 years. Yeah, I'm coming up on our 12th year. So we're in our 11th year right now. Yeah.
Okay. And so you could care for him and he could be closer to you. Can you elaborate on how you kind of dealt with the initial feelings of that first diagnosis? And I've read some of your articles, but I'd love for my listeners to hear. And how has it been for you just, having to become his caregiver?
I was working on Community at the time that my mom and I discovered that something was going on with my dad. My mom and dad were divorced when I was 1 year old. So I had never lived in the house with my father my entire life. So we were in LA. My mother had moved to LA after I did. So we were both in LA. And whenever we would talk to my dad back in Ohio, he was just forgetful. And it was one time I went home to visit my auntie. May she rest in peace. She's passed since. But I was visiting my Aunt Mickey and my dad was coming over to Mickey's house, a house he had come to for 30 years. He could walk blindfolded and get to Mickey's house. And he kept getting lost. He would call me from the journey and I'm on this street. I'm like, Dad, that's nowhere near Auntie's house. Where are you? And that's when I first realized something is going on. So it took another, I think, 6 months to convince him to retire and move out with me. And then Community got canceled and I said, I'm coming to get you. And I was there within 3 days, packing him up and bringing him out. It was the easiest decision I've ever made, actually. You don't know how it's going to hit you when you realize someone you love needs you. But thankfully for me, it was just a no-brainer. Daddy needs me. And though I've never lived in a house with him and I've never been a full-time caregiver and I don't know what this is going to mean for my life or my career, he needs me. So I went and got him and I moved him in. And it was a joyous, difficult, but joyous time, and I had him up until 4 months ago in my house with me for 11 years. He had a fall.
Wow, just 4 months ago.
Just 4 months ago. He fell 4 months ago, broke his hip. And then it was, surgery, nursing rehab. And I was like, well, he's going to do the rehab and he's going to be walking again and we're going to have him right back. That dementia kicked in and basically told him that, no, we can't do this anymore. And so he just stopped walking and stopped trying to walk. And I got to a point where I was like, okay, well, now we're next phase. So now I'm going to go to class and learn how to be a nursemaid. And I'm going to be changing his diaper and learning how to lift him up into the wheelchair. And I'm doing all this. And I'm talking to a caseworker that I got when he went into the rehab because there was so much paperwork and stuff we all had to figure out. So I had a social worker, a caseworker. talking to the caseworker, and he goes, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "How is your time better spent in this season of life? Is it with your dad? Is it better for you to be his nursemaid or his daughter?" And
Mm.
I was like, and he went one step further. He said, "What would he prefer? You be his nursemaid or his daughter? If he was in his right mind and could tell you, what would your dad prefer?" And I knew my dad would prefer that I was his daughter. And I said, "His daughter." And he said, "Okay, so now that we know that that's what he would prefer, do you think that there's anybody on this earth that could care for him better than you?"
Oof.
And I was like, "Yes." He said, "We know there's no one that can love him better than you, but there are people who are trained to care for him better than you. So
Yeah.
how about this energy that you're expending, you use that to find those people, and you create an opportunity for your dad to be your dad, for you to be his daughter, and for
Woo.
him to have the care that he needs." Blew my wig back. If I had a wig on, it would have blew back. And so that's when I said, well, let me try to find the perfect place. And I've now found the perfect place. It's a board and care that's like 10 minutes from my house. He has the same 2 caregivers every day. It's a home that only has like him and 3 other men. So it's a house. So he has his own room, just like he had a room here. And the only difference is that I'm not there 24/7, but I'm there as often as I can be with work and all that. But it literally has been just a lifesaver for me and him, because now when I go see him 3 or 4 times a week, I get to just sit with my daddy. And I
Yeah.
just get to talk to my daddy and rub his head and kiss his forehead, and we laugh and listen to doo-wop music and watch the 5 Heartbeats, and it's as it should be in this season. This is the new season, and this is how it should be.
I'm sorry. This is really more triggering for me than I thought.
I am
Oh,
so sorry, honey. I know. Yeah,
so
and this is okay, Shanti. This is the thing. This
whew,
is the journey, right? And this is why I did the podcast, because I believe the tears that are coming out is that you're being triggered by the life that you led, that you didn't even give yourself permission to call a caregiving life. And now you're seeing that what you went through with your mom and what your sister and your brother went through with your mom, it's all a part of this. And there's guilt tied to it, there's joy tied
whew,
to it, there's pain
girl.
tied to it. And so what I hope Squeezed is for people is this, where you get to
Yes,
hear
that's the name of your podcast,
that's the
right?
name of the
Please.
podcast, Squeezed. I hope that it's this, where it's a chance for someone who is going through it, or who knows they will one day go through it, to have a soft place to land and to hear
Yeah.
other people in the journey talk about how it's been for them, to give you what you need for when it's you. We said in the promo for Squeeze, this is for you or future you. Because the bottom line is, before we get out of here, each one of us is either going to be a caregiver or be cared for.
How
And
about
some
that?
people are going to be doing it both. They're going to be like your brother and sister. They'll be squeezed in the middle, where they have kids and a parent they're taking care of. So this
That's
is
right.
what it is. This is what it is.
Whew, whew. Let me just say, first of all, when that gentleman asked you, what would your dad want you to be?
Woo!
Let me tell you, so as I mentioned, my sister was older. She was,
Mhm.
more stable in terms of a traditional family
Mhm.
life. Had 3 kids, married, big house in North
Yeah.
Carolina. And she just had a little bit more time than me in terms of my schedule. And I was
Right.
traveling so much. And, we often joked about the fact that I felt like I wasn't doing enough, or
Mm.
that, I
Guilt.
should just
The guilt.
move mom in with me, and why would I let her stay in a facility, and are these people going to be really taking care of her?
Mhm.
And my sister used to say to me, like, you gotta let the professionals do what they do. You
What
can
they
still
do.
go see mom, you can still have time with her. And she was the one that was actually, going to all the doctor's appointments, making
Mhm.
sure things were set up, making sure the medication was in place, making sure that
Mhm.
the memory care facility had everything they needed. But I would kind of come in, and I would fly in and take her to get her nails done. And
Yeah.
I wear red lipstick now. It was like a
Yeah.
thing. I started kind of documenting my journey with my mom. And
Yeah.
so I did fight the fact that I wasn't doing enough, but I do feel like I had a role as a caregiver to my
You
mother.
did. You did, and this is the thing, the guilt is a part of it. Now you're talking to somebody that had their father in the house with them for 11 years, and I still feel guilty.
Really?
So that means no matter
You
where
still
you
feel
are,
guilty
I
after
still
11
feel
years.
guilty. I still feel like, well, why didn't I take the class and learn how to change diapers and move them in the bed?
Mm,
And the thing is, this is what got me about what he said about, if your dad was able to tell you, he would tell you to live.
mm,
He would tell you that he lived, and now
mhm.
he wants you to live. And yes, he needs to be safe. And yes, he needs to be fed. And yes, he needs to be comfortable and loved. But that doesn't have to happen in your home. That's not the only place those things can happen. Now, yes, do your due diligence and make sure he's someplace where those things are happening.
Right.
You don't just toss your loved one somewhere and you don't know what's going on. I vetted where he is, and it's the kind of place where I can pop in any time of the day. I've gone at 7 a.m., I've gone at 11 at night, and he's getting the same care no matter what time I pop in on them. So that tells me I chose well, he is safe, and he's right down the street.
I love that. And you can see him. I mean, that was a blessing being in the same city.
Absolutely.
I had to get on that road, but I didn't mind. And to your point, when you find a facility, and you have to do your homework, you got to do your research, because every facility is not built equally. And, you got to advocate for your parents, because sometimes they won't. But when you find a place, when you're lucky enough, where people will love and pour into your family member as if they were their own, that's a complete blessing. So I'm happy for you and your father that you've been able to find that.
Yeah, I am too. I miss him every day, but
I know you do.
Yeah, it's rough, but that's the thing. It's part of it's almost in line with, I lost my mom in 2021, and I always say the grief, thank you. The grief is equal to the love, right? So if you had a real one, like if you had a really wonderful parent or loved one, whoever you've lost, it is going to hurt for the rest of your life. And it should hurt because it's equal to the love. So with my dad, I say the same thing. The guilt is equal to the love. So when I feel that pinch of guilt, like, oh, I'm leaving him, I feel that as I'm walking away because I love him so much. So I'm supposed to hate that I'm walking away from him. So I'm allowing myself that feeling and understanding that it is what it is. I'm not letting it be debilitating, though, because I also have things to do in this world. And they raised me to be the kind of person where I can do a podcast with you so I can spread the word about this podcast about caregiving and pour into you and pour into whoever happens to be listening. They made me to be one of the helpers in this world. And they did not want me to be selfish and help only the people in the house. They want me to go out and go forth and help everybody. And so he and she in heaven wants me to be doing this work. And that requires me bringing somebody in to help or putting him in a facility that's wonderful and loving so that I can continue to do what I was put on this earth to do.
Yes, girl. Oh my God. You are pouring into me. I'm
glad.
This is for the Mibo Show listeners and our partners at Johnson & Johnson and the great work that they do. But when I tell you, so my sister passed away unexpectedly in 2019.
Oh my God.
From a blood clot. And so I became my mom's sole caregiver for 3 years and was literally back and forth and had to fill out all new paperwork and just learn about everything. And, there were times when I had to go there and she didn't look like herself. And I stayed there for a week and put her in the hospital and nursed her back to care. And, I literally watched my mom take her last breath in the facility. In 2022 is when my mother passed, right after your mom. And so when I first started going through this journey, and I think I'm going to do something with these posts. So it was before Instagram was a thing, but I started posting on Facebook, and I came up with this thing, laugh now, cry later. And I would post on Facebook my experiences, what my mom that later I would come in. One day she thought I was my cousin. And I had to walk out of the room and cry.
Yeah.
And I was with her. I was like, let me laugh now because I don't want her to think I'm sad. And I would go and cry later. Did you ever experience anything like that with your dad where you felt like you wanted to be positive in front of him, but then you might go, I think I read you did the ugly Oprah cry once or a lot.
Oh, I've done the Oprah cry often. I just cried. I've gotten to the point now where I will cry with him. Because also he's very emotional, with the thing with Alzheimer's and dementia, if people don't know, it's not a straight shot or decline. It is literally one day they're 80% there. Next day, they don't know your name. The next day they're 20% there. Like you don't know what you're walking into. And when he was in the home with me, the hello I got in the morning would tell me the day we were going to have. I could tell if he's 80% there today. We're going to be able to maybe get out and go outside in the backyard, walk around a bit. Or I'd go in and I go, this is going to be a catatonic day. And he's going to spend the day staring at the wall and not know who I am or who he is. And so you accept that is part of the journey. But I was with him on Sunday and he was having about a 50% day and he knew something wasn't right. And he said, Yvette, I feel like I'm losing my mind. And I said, well,
Really?
Daddy, listen, I've been there too. I said, some days I don't know who I am or where I am either. And it's true. Some days you just don't feel like yourself.
Yeah.
And he got emotional because there were things he wanted to say to me that he couldn't get the words, because sometimes he's pretty much nonverbal at this point. If I can get a full sentence, I'm lucky, but usually it's just words and him trying to figure it out. And he wanted to say something to me and he couldn't get it out. And it had him so frustrated that he started to cry. And seeing him cry made me cry. And so I'm saying, well, we just gonna cry together, Daddy. We just gonna cry together and it's gonna be okay. And we're gonna get it all out and then we're gonna turn the 5 heartbeats on or the Temptations and we're gonna have
Yes.
a time. So he is my greatest gift. He is my greatest love. And he's like my baby. Having him and caring for him for 11 years, he's like my child.
Oh
And
my God, I
so
felt the same way.
same way. And so I want the best for him. I want to give the best for him. But then I also have to accept that he's 82 years old and he has dementia and that his father died in his early 80s of dementia, of Alzheimer's,
Mhm.
both of them. And so I understand where this is going. And so I can't expect him to live forever ever because none of us do.
Mm-mm.
And this is the circle of life. This is how it goes. And I'm just trying to shore up as many memories as I can, trying to make sure that he's having the best time as he can. And then I'm just going to wait for the inevitable.
Ooh,
And that's what
yes.
it is.
Yes, Lord. And I hope we can stay in touch after this because
Absolutely.
I think there was a reason that God connected us because I've been through this journey and
Yeah.
I too want to do more, even though I do a lot around mental health and other health topics. This is just so close to my family,
Yeah.
having watched my mom go through it. One of the things, Yvette, that my sister always used to tell me, she was like, you got to get used to this new normal.
Yeah.
And I would always, in the beginning, I was trying to correct my mom all the time. And she was like, hey, don't
Lean
do
in.
that.
Yeah, lean in.
Just, let it roll and let it ride. And once I got past it, and it didn't take me long, but it's interesting now when I see other friends and family members or caregivers and they come to me in the initial stages and I'm like, hey, just ride with it. Don't correct them because in their mind, what they're saying is right. Can you talk a little bit about that, Yvette?
Yeah. And it took me a minute too, because I thought correcting the record was important, but then I realized, and because I speak to so many people in the Alzheimer's space, and I'm reading books and all of this. It's a moment in time when whatever they say, it's a moment in time. Wait 5 minutes, they won't even remember they said it. So does it really matter if they call your Aunt Georgie or Johnny? Does it?
That's
Does
right.
it matter? Or if they say, my dad will say, well, I got to get up and go to work. And so in the beginning, I'd be like, well, Daddy, you've been retired for 10 years and you're in LA, and I do this whole thing. You don't work at the school anymore. And then I would like, yeah, Daddy, well, you know what? They told you can come in late today. So why don't you rest a little while? You can get up and go, maybe in an hour or so. Is that okay? They're going to give you the morning off. And he go, oh, okay, I don't have to go this. No, you don't have to go until the afternoon. By the time the afternoon comes, he's not thinking about going to work anymore.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And so it's just making sure that they're not in distress. And if you have a parent that is very responsible, my dad never missed a day of work. He was that dude. The anxiety of being in bed and the sun is up made him feel like he was letting people down. So you just want to just calm them down. It's like almost like going back to having a child. If you had a baby that is having a tantrum or they're upset about something, you soothe the baby.
That's
So
right.
you just soothe the baby. You don't tell the baby you shouldn't be crying about not having pudding. You just soothe the baby.
That's right. Oh my God. This is such a great conversation. And I know more importantly, it's going to help so many people because as you mentioned, this is something that a lot of us go through, and we saw the stats earlier. So many in our Black community go through it. Can you talk about some of the challenges you went through that others who might be caregivers need to know about? Like anything kind of specifically early on?
Yes, this is the most important thing. I tell everybody this. You want to get a durable power of attorney for your loved one immediately. The first time you notice that they are forgetful or they're sick, it's not just for Alzheimer's, it's across the board. If there is going to be a time that you are going to have to step in to care for someone that you're not married to and you did not birth, you need to make sure you have durable power of attorney because the paperwork and the calls, it's a quagmire. And the first thing they ask you is, are you authorized to have this conversation? And if you don't have a piece of paper that you can fax to them that shows you are, or there's not something in their file saying that you are, they'll go, we can't talk to you about this. Well, guess who else you can't talk to? The dude with dementia. So, it's and you don't want to realize that you can't advocate for your mother and father when it's too late, because once they're fully in, they can't sign the power of attorney. And that's why you do durable, because that only kicks in when they're incapacitated, because a lot of our people are proud. We're proud people. And we don't want to, you can get into my bank account. I don't want you making no, you know how your mamas and your daddies are. So you get the durable, and in it says this will only take place or kick in if I am debilitated. And once I am okay again, it shuts back off until I'm needed again.
That is so important. Durable power of attorney. Y'all take note of this. And then talk about a little bit more about the phone calls and emails and doctor visits and, how you have to be the one advocating for your dad, when he can't. Like, that's got to be a lot as well, right?
Yeah, it is. It's just a difficult gauntlet. And there's a lot of, what's the word? You have to advocate for appeals, right? So when Dad was in his rehab facility after he broke his hip, they would want to put him out of the facility every 5 days. Well, we did it. We got to get him out of here. And I'm like, he's not walking yet. And the biggest problem I had, and this is something that people that have dementia should think about, or taking care of someone with dementia should think about. When he broke his hip, when you have dementia, and also when you're just 80 in general, look at me having this hot flash right during this. Hold on.
Hold on. You don't see me.
You better listen. We're going to talk about this too. As I go into a flop sweat.
Yvette and me with our fan right now. What's happening?
What's up? What's good? What's good?
53, baby. 53.
What's good, 53? What's good, 53? Just give me a minute. Let me get this together, and then we're going to get back into it.
Yes.
So when and I love that you share this and I share this. I think there's such a mystery to menopause, and people are so afraid to say their age and whatever. We are doing great. We are still here. And this is a part of life. So this is what 53 looks like. That's what a hot flash looks like. Get into it. Life is fine. Okay. So when he first, what I found out is when you're in your 80s and when you have dementia, anesthesia really does a number on you. And you may hear someone say that, but you do not understand what I'm saying to you until you see it for yourself. There were moments my dad thought he was getting in a spaceship going to Mars. I am not joking. He was seeing things in the room. He was hallucinating. He kept trying to get out the bed, though he couldn't walk. He was pulling his catheter out. It was a 24-hour staying vigilant by the bed to make sure that this man who was going through psychosis was okay. In the midst of that psychosis, they were trying to teach him how to walk again. And then they were judging whether he was making progress while he was in that state. God. And so I had to say, you cannot stop his physical therapy on day 4 because he hasn't progressed when he's still coming off of anesthesia. It took him 2 weeks to get back to what his baseline was before he fell mentally. And so they had already assessed in those 2 weeks that he was not someone they could make better. So they canceled his physical therapy. So at the point he was finally able to learn how to walk again, they cut it off. I had to fight tooth and nail to get an appeal twice. I was on the phone with I don't know how many people for I don't know how many hours trying to get different people to understand what my dad needed. Now, thankfully, I have the kind of life where I could do that. What if I had a job, minimum wage job, and I had to be at work for those 8 hours? Or what if I was on set at the time working on a show?
And because most people don't have that luxury, to your point.
They do not have the luxury. So I'm advocating now. I'm with a great group called the Creative Coalition, and we advocate for different things. And I'm the chairman of their commission on caregiving. So we went to Washington to talk to Congress people about it. I talk about it on Squeeze. Like, I'm literally sounding the alarm that something has to change so that people have an easier way to help their people. So it's a lot. It's a lot, girl.
It's a lot. But let me tell you, just listening to you, and I know everybody that will have the benefit of hearing this will be poured into in a way that I don't think we've truly heard. We talk to people about their journey, but nobody's really in our community that I've seen really taking caregiving on, right. and really being able to fight for what we need in terms of being able to help and support our parents like yourself. I mean, it's really incredible what you're doing. And I salute you and applaud you.
Thank you,
and my heart goes out to you. And you got a new sister friend here. I know we don't know each other that well, but our journeys, you never know how journeys bring people together. And if you ever need anybody else on the front line, certainly let me know.
Wait, what question? So, where were you at Motown?
So I was at Universal Motown from 2005 to 2010.
Okay, so I missed you. Because I I worked at Motown in LA
You
from
did not.
I did from 94. I was at the 5750 building and I
Wait,
was at yes, I was at the 5750 building on Wilshire. I worked for
yeah.
Michael Bivins over there. And then I started
Oh, wow.
temping. I can't remember the Sunset, I mean the one in Hollywood near Chase Bank. I can't remember that address, but I started there and then we all moved over to 5750.
Oh, I love that. So I was in New York, actually.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember when Andre Harrell took over and then it moved to New York. So
Yeah.
I was there right before it moved to New York.
Look at that.
I know
So
we
in
got a
the
lot of
early 90s, I was at LaFace Records with
okay.
LA Babyface from 93 to 2000. Then I moved to New York and was at Columbia Records. And then after Columbia, I went over to Universal
Okay,
Motown.
so that's why. So you were at LaFace when I was at Motown.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. See, that's somebody know about you,
Yep.
y'all. Can she do it all? She can
And
work
with this,
behind the scenes on the music side.
I'm about to blow your mind. I actually started in the East Coast Family as a singer.
Shut up.
Yeah, I was in the East Coast Family. I was in the One for All for One video and was discovered by Michael Bivins and was one of the singers that he discovered when he discovered Boyz II Men.
Shout out to
That's
our
how
brother.
my career started. Yeah.
Oh my
That's how it
God.
started.
It's so crazy. Of course, we're all New Edition fans and happy
Oh,
40th
girl, forget it.
anniversary to them. But he spawned so many artists, just
Yep.
from what he did. Did you happen to know a lady named Deidre Tate?
Yes. Yes,
So
Deidre worked at Biv 10.
So she's like my big sister. I love her.
I love her. Yeah, I know Deidre really well.
Oh, look at that. Okay, I'm sorry, y'all. We're going to get back to caregiving. But that's what we do, I love it. Okay, so I'm going to go back. A couple more questions. Now, when your father broke his hip and you made that decision to put him in the care facility, what was the most difficult part of having to kind of let go of that daily responsibility? We talked about it a little bit, but I guess the benefit outweighed, you having to keep him at the house, right?
I mean, I don't know if it outweighed. I don't know if that's the word, but I had being a caregiver, being an in-home everyday 24-hour a day caregiver, it kind of become my identity. I think, again, going back to the parent thing, once you have a kid, you're a parent. And so I liken it to empty nest syndrome, like the same thing that parents go through when their kids go to college. That's what I think I'm feeling, and I'm still feeling it, because he's my baby. He's my dad. It's my responsibility to make sure he's eating and he's comfortable. And so it's hard to take your hand off. It's hard to let someone else do the job that is your job. So that was the most difficult part. There has been a benefit in that if I have to go do something, if I have to travel, if I have to take time to do this, like if he was still in the house, I would have this door open instead of closed. And I would have to tell you might hear some noise or whatever, but I got to have an ear open because if daddy needs me, I got to get to daddy. So there's little moments like that where I'm realizing like, oh, I'm not on guard like this 24 hours a day. I can sleep a little better because he would have night terrors sometimes and he would scream out for me in the middle of the night, or he would get up and start walking. And towards the end of our time in the house, he started walking towards the front door, which he had never done. So there are some things about him no longer being able to walk that are a relief to me because I know that at the new home where he is, he won't walk into the street. He won't, you know what I mean? So you got to find the blessings in the midst of the horrors. And there are always some blessings,
My mother early on at her first facility started wandering outside, and that's when she was actually in assisted living at that time, kind of early stages of dementia, maybe hadn't been diagnosed with full-blown Alzheimer's. And that's when we knew we had to find somewhere with a memory care facility. And so we used to have this tradition. I used to spend every Christmas, almost every holiday with my sister and her family in Charlotte. And so we would go over to the house at Christmas. We'd go to mass, have dinner, come back to the house, watch movies. And this was maybe, I don't know, 2017, maybe a year or two before my sister passed. And I was just gung-ho on my mom spending the night with us. And I was like, I'll take her back to the facility in the morning because we would go get her and then sometimes bring her back. And I said, well, she can stay in the bed with me. I'll watch her. And my sister's home had 3 levels. And so, girl, this was one of the hardest nights of my life. I remember falling asleep, but my mom was in the same bed with me. It was a small bed. And I did that to make sure I could be right near her. And I got up and I was sleeping lightly, but she was not in the room.
Oh my God.
So I said, okay, Let me walk and see if she's in the bathroom. I walked it's 3 bedrooms upstairs. I went in everybody's bedroom, didn't see her. Then I went to the main level, and she could have fallen down the steps. It's these high steps. I said, okay, she's not in the kitchen. I mean, I went through every piece of the house. The alarm was still on, so I said, she's not there. I went down in the basement. I didn't see her anywhere. Now, by that time, my mind has gone to, oh my God, she's passed out. She's fallen. Is she alive? I mean, I'm freaking out. And come to find out, she was in the bedroom downstairs where my sister's mother-in-law was staying. And I opened the door and just started crying because it was such a relief. And she was sitting there. So what was happening, Yvette, is she was looking for her room at the facility. And so my sister was like, you've got to let her stay in her own place.
Yeah.
It's okay to take her out, but it was confusing her. And she would always say, when am I going home, or when am I going back to my room? And so even though she didn't put the context of my sister's house into the facility, she still thought she could get to her room.
Yeah, it's when I first put him in,
never let her spend the night with us again. It was too dangerous.
Yeah, when I first put Dad in his boarding care, they told me, I know this is going to be hard for you to hear, but for the first 2 weeks, we need you not to visit. We need you to let him acclimate. It's going to be hard for him. It's going to be hard for you, but we need him to acclimate and realize that this is where he lives. Then you're visiting him where he lives instead of him, and even when I went after the first 2 weeks, there was moments where he was like, am I leaving with you? And I go, no, Daddy, see, you're in your house. So now we're 3 months into this facility. He doesn't ask. He knows that when I visit, I'm visiting. He knows that when I leave, I'm going back to where I live. And he's no longer saying, do I need to get my coat because I'm coming with you? His questions now are, when are you coming back? So he understands this is where I am. Yvette is going where she is. And that's what it is. But it's been that way with every house we went to. When he moved here from Ohio and I had another house, an older house then, he had to get acclimated to that. Then we moved into this house 2 years ago. He had to get acclimated to this. So it takes them a while with the dementia. And changing their environment is very traumatic.
It is so traumatic. And to your point, Mom got used to it. And it's so funny. She would say to me, she'd say, where are you going back to New York? I said, no, Mom, I live in Atlanta. She said, well, you should really come stay here because you can get room and board. And 3 meals a day, and we can live in the same place. And it used to break my heart, but it brought joy. Right. And so, you got to let them get acclimated. I'm glad that your dad is getting or has gotten acclimated and is comfortable now. Yeah. Now, you also haven't, as you mentioned, really been able to just be his daughter for the last decade. How did that make you feel? And also, what can you tell other people who are in the same position about just that guilt and just, again, to your point, finding the right place and just letting them get the real level of care? Because everybody's situation is going to be different.
Right. I'm a morbid person. Not that I don't spend a day every day just thinking about death or other people's death, but I'm very dialed into the fact that we have a certain amount of time here, and most of us are going to leave.
And I don't think that's morbid. I just think you have a different consciousness about it.
Yeah. And, most of us are going to leave before we want to. Mm-hmm. And a lot of our family members are going to leave in ways that we would not prefer. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's the truth. So anybody that makes it to 80, 81, 82, they have a very full, rich life behind them. They have had a job they've probably retired from. They've gotten married, probably had some kids, whatever. They've taken the ride that they wanted to take for the most part. So when you look at the lens of my dad from that lens, he's at a place in his life where all of his brothers and sister are gone. My mother is gone. Her entire generation is gone. My dad is the last one from both sides of my family in that generation.
Wow.
So that means he's not talking to his sister or his brothers on the phone. He's not seeing or talking to my mother or her sisters or her brother. He literally has no one from his generation that he can connect with anymore. And he knows that on a good day. He knows that it's just him. So when you look at it from that lens, if you think about how you would feel if everybody you went to high school with, everybody you went to work with, everybody you were cool with was gone, and you're 82 and your body is failing you, you're thinking more about the great by and by than you are about this life. That's how it is. It's the circle of life. And so when I realized that my dad, if he was in his right mind, would say to me what my mom said to me before she left here. She said, Yvette, I done done everything I need to do here. She and my aunt said the same thing before they left.
Really?
I done did everything I wanted to do. I done been in love. I done had my men. I done had my kids. I done had this job. My mother was like, I done played bingo everywhere I think I want to play bingo. She said the Lord could take me at any time. She made sure that me and my brother knew I'm not sitting here dreaming for another 20 years of this. I've had enough. And not in a sense where I want to die or I'm suicidal or any of that, but just from the ideal of I have seen the fullness of what this world has to bring. You and your brother both grown. Y'all doing well in the world. I raised my kids. I did what I was supposed to do. When she told me she had played enough bingo, I said, oh, she's trying to get out of here. Because my mother loved bingo. I'm like, she really is done. She loved bingo. So, but what I'm saying is that it's a circle. It's a cycle of life. And even though I want my dad to live for another 30 years, in what way would he be living in 30 years? Where would his mind be? Where would his body be? He's a strong man. Does he want somebody changing his diaper? And he don't want none of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that his mind is such that he doesn't even realize what his body has become.
That's right.
So it's like you got to let the guilt of their body doing what a body does. It's just your body dies.
What a beautiful perspective that you have of that. I just, again, and I hope you don't mind me referencing my experience with my mother.
Of course not. Of course not.
I remember the day, and my mom was 91 when she passed. What a full life as well.
It's a full rich life.
I remember when she said she got ready to get up, but she couldn't walk, and she didn't realize she couldn't use her lower extremities anymore. And I said, Mom, where you going? She said, I'm just getting ready to walk down here to the bathroom. That's not living for her.
It's not living.
And my mom was very, independent and, still, again, put on her lipstick till she almost took her last breath. And so
that was my mom. Yeah.
To your point, I get it. Like, we got to just let them, we got to be okay with that part of the process.
Well, I'll tell you this too. My mother, before she passed, she got leukemia. My mom went to the hospital and died within 8 days. She was totally fine. Had a blood issue where her blood wasn't clotting. She went to the dentist and found that her blood wasn't clotting and went to the hospital and was gone in 8 days.
Oh,
and
no.
She, towards the end, and I was actually in Ireland shooting a movie, Disenchanted. So I wasn't even, and it was during COVID, so I couldn't come home. It was just a mess. But my brother thankfully held vigil and held the phone up so I could see her take her last breath on FaceTime. But this is the thing. My mother decided to go to hospice. There was cancer didn't kill her, and the pneumonia she had would not have killed her. But she did not want to do it anymore. And she had told me and my brother, I don't want to be on no machines. There's things that I don't want to do. And so we had known our entire life that if it came down to machines and whatnot, it was a no for her. And while she was still able to speak, she said to us, we said, are you tired? She said, yes. We said, do you want to go on? She said, I don't. We said, do you want to go into hospice? She said, I do. And we put her on hospice and she passed within 12 hours. She was ready to go. And the chaplain that was there for her said to us, I am so grateful that you honored your mother's wishes, because there are some family members that would keep their parent or loved one here because they're not ready to say goodbye. Mm-hmm. Your mother, she was like, I was in here. Your mother clearly said she wanted to go to hospice and you guys could have said no and she could be on chemo right now. But she didn't want it. She wanted to go. And so the thing is, and the fact that she passed within 12 hours says that her body was ready to go.
Yeah.
So at some point, you have to accept that we are going to die. Every single one of us on this earth, we are not long for this world. What it means, though, is you make every day count. You take care of each other and love each other and try to be a helper in the world so that while we're here, it's not horrible. But when it's time to say goodbye, have the courage to say goodbye.
Yeah. Ooh, girl, you better tell us how to live our life, right? Oh my gosh. But it's so true because, excuse me, I think we just get caught up in, of course, we want to have our loved ones here as long as possible. And especially when things happen unexpectedly, but when their bodies are ready, their bodies are ready.
Bodies are ready. So fill each day that you have them with the good. That means forgive each other quicker and go and have the dinner. You know, take the flight and go see them on the hot. Fill it. Make the time you have rich so that when they go, you don't have the regrets. Half of the people throwing themselves onto caskets and crying is because they didn't do right when they were here. If you do right by them while they're here, you ain't got to do all that. Another thing, one more thing about my mother. She told us from the time we were kids, I don't want a funeral. She said, because I'm not going to create a space for nobody to come and put on a show. If somebody cares about me, they will spend time with me while I'm here. I don't want nobody coming talking about all the times they could have done blah, blah, blah over my dead body.
How about that? And so that takes me back to caregiving. Again, leaning into just being there for them, right? Riding everything out. I think the hardest thing for me, once my sister passed away, was my mom would ask where my sister was. And I will say that out of a place of love, her doctors and I made a decision not to tell her.
I agree.
That my sister had passed away. I said, I used to just now, when I tell you it took everything in me not to break down and cry every single time. And I would wipe my tears away and just say, Mom, she out of town, but she'll be back next week.
Yep, she'll be back next week.
She loves you and she asks about you. Keeping them happy while they're here, preserving their joy. You can't be selfish. You got to take your emotions out of it. You got to do what is best for your loved one that you are caregiving for.
The baby. My dad still doesn't know that his youngest brother passed, and he doesn't know that my mother's youngest sister passed. He asks about him. I go, oh, Mickey doing fine. Oh, Ramon's doing all right. I do not. He doesn't need to know that.
Not at all.
He doesn't. Soothe the baby. Soothe the baby.
Soothe the baby. I'm going to keep using that. All right. Last big question and then one fun question. So how have you, Yvette, been able to manage your own mental and body fitness throughout this journey? I think as we talked about, caregivers sometimes are more prone to having anxiety, being stressed out and that sort of thing. So how does Yvette pour back into Yvette and still be able to be here for your dad?
I have a great therapist, and thankfully we're at the point where I only reach out when it's crisis. Like if I'm having a really, really horrible time, she'll make time for me. But she's got me so together. She was my therapist after my mom passed, and her name is Love McPherson. I want to give her flowers because she's amazing. She's a grief counselor and also a love counselor. Like so, she also got me together in time for me to be ready to receive this wonderful man that's in my life now. So I believe in therapy. I believe in prayer, and I believe in time with friends who know you and can pour back into you when you're depleted. And we do that for each other, my friend group. And so far as the physical fitness, I'm not one to do a side bend, but I do know that it does bring endorphins and stuff. So I do want to try to get some sort of.
You take walks?
I do walk. I have a dog, so I do walk, but it's not the same as like. It's a haphazard fitness regime. I need to get something going that's a regime that's more focused.
That's okay. Well, you look good, girl. So whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Keep doing it. And I love that. That's going to be another email to you. What is the love therapist? I need that in my life.
Yes, it's wonderful.
It's 53 and I'm ready.
Liz, let me tell you something. I got reconnected with my future husband at 51, got engaged at 52. And that was my first time being engaged, first marriage. At 53, I'll be getting married. So delay is not denial. I've been telling everybody that. Delay is not denial.
You know what? Can I tell you what my mama used to ask me? What? I mean, almost every time I talked to her on the phone or saw, did you get married yet? I said, no, Mom. Do you have any kids? No, Mom, not yet. She said, well, what you waiting on?
Yeah, you waiting on the right one.
I don't do anything. I'm going to honor, hopefully, my mom, and y'all might go get to a wedding in the next 10 years, God willing.
Good. Why not? And whenever it comes, it's going to be sweet.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Do you have any resources you can share with us or other organizations that you're a part of, or if anybody
I have
dealing with caregiving and Alzheimer's, what can they do?
Yeah, I mentioned the Creative Coalition. They have a great a commission on caregiving that I'm the chair of. Also, there's a wonderful woman named Ai-jen Poo, and she's got this thing. It's called #CareCan'tWait. If you put that in any social media place, it'll pop up and you'll see everything that Ai-jen is doing. AARP is doing some great things in the caregiving space. They have 4 bills that they've push into Congress and hoping to get passed that will provide services and financial help and a safety net for those of us that are caregivers. And then again, Squeezed lists a lot of things that you can do and that you can have. And so that's great. But if you go to my any of my social pages, my Instagram is at Yvette Nicole Brown, and Twitter is at YNB, my initials, and all of my other socials are on Twitter. If you go there, I'm tweeting about caregiving stuff all the time.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I've been checking you out lately, and I'll definitely make sure that we push out in our description so people to check out your podcast, Squeeze. I can't wait to listen more of it. And one of the things that I also found helpful is a place for mom. I know it's in the South.
Great.
You can Google it, but it's not just for mom. They find places for moms or dads, in your local community. So that's another good resource. And yeah, I mean, this has been so great. Because I do have a music background, I asked all of my guests this one question.
Yes.
Because it's called the Mibo Show. What song stimulates your mind, the M-I in Mibo? And then what song soothes your body?
Ooh, stimulates my mind. I'm going to go back to, I'm going to give two.
Okay.
The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is probably one of the most mentally stimulating and fun genius pieces of work I've ever heard. So I'm gonna say that album. Okay. And then I also love me some Layla Hathaway.
Yes, I love her. She's so sweet.
Oh, she's so sweet. She's a great person, but also just anything her soothing voice is just amazing. As for my body, I got to go with my girl Janet Jackson, and then also the entire Jackson family. And Tito Jackson, please rest in peace.
Oh yeah.
It broke my heart, but it's everything Jackson just invigorates me and just makes me happy. So the Jacksons and Janet Jackson I'll go for body.
I love it. Yes, all great. Lauryn Hill, Janet Jackson, Tito, just rest in peace, Tito Jackson. Well, Mibo Show, I hope y'all have enjoyed this conversation, the listeners, as much as I have. It has really poured into my heart and soul. I think you are amazing, Yvette.
Oh, sis, thank you. Back at you.
The way you just talk about this journey with such conviction and humility and love, the way we've watched you love on your dad and all you've been able to do, because not many people can. And I know it's we don't try to separate if you're a caregiver in the home, but it is a different level of care. When your loved one is in the home with you 24/7, you literally have to be on call, almost like a nurse. And so I celebrate you. I honor you. I honor the memory of your mother, and I will keep you and your father in my continued prayers. And, as you and your dad are sitting there watching movies or listening to music, just think about my mom and I miss those moments.
I know, honey.
Because those were our moments. That was our normal. If I can say anything to the listeners, if you're a caregiver, if your loved one has Alzheimer's, just find your normal with them.
That's right. And lean in.
Anybody else's reality. It is you and your loved one's reality. My mom and I had our things. I mean, literally, as she was, when you've heard of the death rattle, I watched my mom transition for 16 hours.
Same.
And I was wiping, moisturizing her lips, and I was reapplying her red lipstick almost until she took her last breath.
Yeah.
That was our normal. And so I will smile when I think of that, and I'll think about you and your dad having a good time. This is so powerful. Just want to salute all the caregivers out there in America. I hope this episode has been able to touch someone, to provide much needed resources, and more importantly, just to know that you're not alone, and that so many of us are having to care for our parents or family members in this way. And it's inevitable, right?
Yeah.
As Yvette said, it's something that we all may have to deal with one day, or we all are going to go one day. We just don't know how. But, Alzheimer's is something that has been affecting our community. And so many of us now are having to play and serve in the role as caregiver. I want to shout out our community partners, and I want to shout out our partner and sponsor, Johnson & Johnson, who allows this podcast to be possible so that we can put this great information from a health perspective into the market, especially in our Black community. So please, check out the Mibo Show podcast on all platforms, rate, subscribe, share it with a friend. And more importantly, let's love on each other, y'all. We need more love. We need more people like Yvette in this world. And Yvette, I'm just giving you a big hug. You, my new sister friend, I love you so much. Your team has been amazing to work with. And just let me know if I can be of service or the Mibo Show to you in any way. And so love to you
Absolutely.
and your father.
Thank you, honey. And sending love back. Thank you so much.